Обраний. July 1st, July 2nd, July 3rd. These are not random dates on a calendar. These are not coincidences lined up by chance. These 3 days starting right now were written into your story before you were born. And if you are watching this on July 1st or 2nd or 3rd, I need you to understand something that most people are going to completely miss this week. God marked these days, specifically deliberately with your name attached. I know that sounds bold. I know that might even sound uncomfortable to some of you who have been waiting so long that bold statements feel dangerous. But stay with me, because what I am about to walk you through is not hype. It is pattern. And pattern is something God has been doing since the beginning of time. There is a reason why 3 days kept appearing in the scriptures. 3 days in the belly. 3 days in the tomb. 3 days and Lazarus walked out. 3 days is not a coincidence in the Bible. It is a code. It is the divine compression cycle, where heaven packs an entire season of transformation into a focused window of time. And right now you are inside that window. Let me say something to the person who almost did not click on this. You felt a pull, right? Something told you to stop scrolling. Something said this one is for you. That was not your curiosity, that was an invitation. And invitations from heaven do not come with unlimited time. They come with windows. July 1st through 3rd is your window. Before I go any further, I want to ask you to do one thing. Drop a 1 in the comments right now. If you are watching this on July 1st, 2nd or 3rd, I want to know how many people God sent to this exact video at this exact moment. You'll be surprised because the people who are here right now are not random. You were selected for this. Now let me walk you through what these 3 days actually mean and what is about to happen in your life. I want to introduce you to a concept I call the 3-day protocol. Throughout scripture, God does not use 3 days as a timeline of waiting. He uses 3 days as a timeline of transformation. When Jonah was swallowed, the 3 days inside the whale were not punishment. They were preparation. What came out of Jonah on day 3 was not what went in on day 1. Something had been dissolved. Something had been reformed. Something had been calibrated. When Jesus was in the tomb, the disciples thought the story was over. They thought the 3 days were silence. But those 3 days were the most active days in spiritual history. Something was being cleared. Something was being aligned. Something was being prepared for a release that would shake the world. This is the 3-day protocol. God takes 3 days to do what looks like it should take years. He compresses seasons into days when the timing is right. And the timing is right now. Here is how it works. Day 1 is the clearing. Day 2 is the alignment. Day 3 is the release. Each phase is distinct. Each phase is necessary, and each phase is happening in your life, starting with July 1st. If you are watching this on July 1st, you are at the beginning of the clearing. Things are about to become unstuck. Old patterns are about to dissolve. The weight you have been carrying that does not belong to you is about to be lifted. If you are watching this on July 2nd, you are in the alignment. This is the most quiet but most powerful of the 3 days. This is when your internal world is being recalibrated to receive what is coming. And I'm going to explain exactly what that means in a few minutes, because there is something about this day in particular that changed everything for over 18,000 people. If you are watching this on July 3rd, you are at the release. What God has been preparing is now being sent into the field, into your life. Let me tell you about a trap that I call the false patience. There is a difference between holy patience and spiritual paralysis. Holy patience is active. It is expectant. It is the farmer who planted the seed and waters the ground every single day. Not because they can make the seed grow faster, but because they refuse to stop cooperating with the process. Spiritual paralysis looks identical from the outside, but feels completely different on the inside. It is waiting dressed up as faith. It is the belief that if God is in control, you do not have to do anything. You just have to endure. And so people sit and seasons pass and they keep saying, I am being patient, when actually they have confused waiting with inaction. The false patience is dangerous because it feels righteous, it feels humble. But it is actually a form of disengagement. It is pulling back from the very process God is trying to pull you into. And the 3-day protocol cannot be entered from a posture of paralysis. It requires you to be present, alert, leaning in. So right now, today, whatever day of the 3 this is for you, I want you to shift your posture. Not in desperation, not in striving, but in active engagement. You are not a passive recipient of whatever falls from the sky. You are a participant in a divine process that requires your cooperation. Before I go deeper into what each of these 3 days means for your specific situation, I want to take a moment to talk about something that almost no one is discussing this week. And I am going to be honest with you, because I think you deserve honesty more than you deserve comfort. A lot of the people who will experience the most dramatic shifts during these 3 days are not the people who are the most spiritually advanced. They are not the ones who have prayed the longest or fasted the most or read the most scriptures. The people who are going to be most impacted by this window are the ones who are most aligned. And alignment, I have learned, has less to do with spiritual discipline and more to do with something that happens at a much deeper level of your being. I discovered something about 3 years ago, something that a neurologist in New York City was researching based on work that had already won a Nobel Prize. And when I first heard about it, I was skeptical. I am going to be completely honest. I thought it sounded like another self-help shortcut that would fizzle out in 6 weeks and leave people feeling worse than when they started. But then I heard what was actually happening inside the people who used it. The way they described it, it was not like a technique. It was like something unlocked, like a door that had been stuck for years finally swung open. And the things that came through that door were not things they had manufactured through effort or discipline. They were things that had apparently been prepared and waiting on the other side. I am going to come back to that. But first I need to make sure you understand what is happening right now in these 3 days, because the timing of what I am about to share with you is not accidental. Something was prepared for you, and it is waiting at the other side of a door that is about to open. That is all I am going to say for now. But keep that image in your mind as we walk through this together. Now I want to talk about the pattern blindness. Because most people, even people who are very spiritually aware, are going to walk through these 3 days completely unaware of what is happening. Pattern blindness is when you are so close to something that you cannot see its shape. You see individual moments, individual challenges, individual frustrations, but you cannot see the larger pattern those moments are forming. This is why God sent prophets not to tell people things they could not figure out, but to step back far enough to see the shape that individuals were too close to recognize. Let me give you a historical example. When the children of Israel were at the Red Sea, they did not see a strategy in motion. They saw a dead end. The water was in front of them. The army was behind them, and from where they stood there was no exit. But Moses had been given a view they did not have access to. He had seen the pattern. He had seen enough of God to know that what looks like a dead end from the inside looks very different from above. The Red Sea moment was not a failure of God to plan ahead. It was a setup, a deliberate compression of circumstances that would require a specific kind of clearing, a specific kind of alignment, and a specific kind of release. 3 elements sound familiar? The 3-day protocol is the Red Sea pattern compressed into a calendar window. And you sitting here right now are at the edge of the water. You can see the army behind you. You can see the impossible in front of you. But what you cannot see yet is what Moses could see. The path is already forming. The clearing is already in motion. And by July 3rd, something is going to break open that you have been looking at as a wall. I want to ask you something honest. How long have you been carrying the same story? Not the facts of your circumstances, but the story you tell yourself about those circumstances. The story that says this is just how my life is, or this is as far as I get, or maybe blessing is just for other people. That story is not your truth. That story is accumulated weight, and day 1, July 1st, is a clearing day. The weight is coming off, but only if you are willing to recognize what the weight actually is. Most people think their obstacles are external. The wrong job, the wrong relationship, the wrong financial situation, the wrong city. And sometimes those things do need to change. But the real weight, the weight that God is targeting on July 1st, is not outside you. It is the neural grooves that keep you running the same patterns even when the external circumstances change. You have known people who got the breakthrough but still stayed stuck. Got the promotion but still felt like a fraud. Got the new relationship but still felt alone. Got the money but still operated from scarcity. The external thing changed. The internal calibration did not. And so the new thing could not be held. This is why the clearing has to come first, before alignment, before release. The old grooves have to be dissolved so the new patterns have somewhere to form. And if you are wondering what I mean by neural grooves, I am going to explain that in detail very soon, because the scientific research behind what is happening in these 3 days at the level of your brain and your nervous system is something that is going to completely reframe how you think about spirit while transformation. It does not reduce the miracle. It reveals the mechanism. If you are still with me, drop a fire in the comments right now. I want to know you are here because what is coming next is going to be important. Let me paint a picture of what July 1st is actually doing in the unseen realm right now. If you could see what heaven sees, you would watch something like a field being prepared. Imagine a garden that has been overgrown for years. Not because the gardener forgot it, not because it was abandoned, but because the season for harvesting had not come yet. And during that season of waiting, growth happened. But not all growth is good. Some of it was weeds. Some of it was old structures from previous plantings that never fully decomposed. Some of it was hardened soil from the drought years. The gardener does not show up in the clearing day with a watering can. The gardener shows up with a plow, and the plow does not look gentle. The plow looks violent to the ground. It looks like destruction to the things that are being turned over. But the soil knows at a level below the surface that the turning is not an ending. It is a preparation. July 1st is plow season, and I need you to hear me on this. If things feel like they are coming loose right now, if relationships that were not serving you are suddenly falling away, if opportunities that were keeping you distracted are suddenly closing, if situations that felt stable are suddenly shifting, do not panic. That is not God abandoning you. That is God preparing you. The plow does not distinguish between the good root and the weed in the moment of turning. It just turns. But the gardener knows what belongs in the next season and what does not. Trust the gardener. I want to share something with you that very few teachers in this space are willing to say. The clearing is painful for most people. Not because it is supposed to be, but because we resist it. We hold on to the things that are being cleared because they are familiar, even when they are hurting us. We hold on to patterns that have become our identity, even when those patterns are the very thing blocking our blessing. The reason most people do not experience the 3-day protocol as a transformation is not because they are not chosen. It is because they white-knuckle the clearing. They fight the plow. And when you fight the plow, you do not prevent the clearing. You just make it longer and more painful than it needs to be. The person who moves through July 1st with open hands moves through the clearing quickly. The person who grips tight to what God is trying to remove spends July 2nd still clearing when they should be aligning. Open your hands right now. Wherever you are, I want you to physically open your hands and set them palm up. That is not a symbolic gesture. That is a body-level signal to your nervous system that you're in receive mode, not in hold mode. And that distinction between receive mode and hold mode is going to become very important when I show you what alignment actually requires. There is one more thing I need to cover before we go deep into the day 1 clearing. And it is something that I have seen derail people even in the most powerful spiritual seasons. I call it accumulated weight, and I want to be specific about what that means. Accumulated weight is not your past. Your past is not your weight. Accumulated weight is the interpretation of your past that you have been carrying forward. It is the meaning you made from the things that happened to you. The child who was overlooked by a parent and made the meaning, I am not worth being chosen. The person who was betrayed in a significant relationship and made the meaning, I cannot be trusted by anyone. The individual who tried something bold and failed publicly and made the meaning, I should stay small and safe. None of those meanings are facts. They are stories constructed from facts. And the construction happened at a time when you did not have the full picture. When you were hurt and you were building a mental framework as fast as you could to make sense of the pain, and you have been living inside that framework ever since. Even though the circumstances that produced it are long gone, that is accumulated weight. And it lives not just in your thoughts, but in your body, in the tension patterns of your shoulders, in the way your chest tightens in certain conversations, in the instant contraction you feel when someone offers you something good, that reflexive. This cannot really be for me. The clearing on July 1st is targeting that weight specifically, not the circumstances of your past. The grip of the meaning you made. And when that grip releases, something remarkable happens in the physical structure of your brain. The neural pathways that were built to carry that story, pathways that fired automatically every time a certain stimulus showed up. Those pathways begin to weaken. The scientific term is synaptic pruning. But in the experience of it, it feels like space. It feels like a room you have been cramped in your whole life suddenly having a window opened. That is the clearing, and it is happening right now. For the people who are listening to this at the right time, I want you to leave a comment below right now. Tell me what is the one thing that you feel like God is trying to clear from your life in this season. You do not have to be specific. You can just say the old story or the fear or the weight, but I want you to name it because naming it is the first act of releasing it. You are not a passive observer of your own transformation. Part 1 of this journey is almost complete. But before I show you what day 2, the alignment, actually requires, and before I share with you what a Nobel Prize-winning discovery has to do with your breakthrough in these 3 days, I need you to understand something about the pattern you have been part of without knowing it. Every single time in Scripture when God moved in a 3-day pattern, the person at the center of it did not know they were in the 3 days while they were living them. Jonah did not know he was in a transformation protocol when he was in the belly. He thought he was dying. The disciples did not know the 3 days in the tomb were the most active 3 days in cosmic history. They thought God had gone silent. You are in the 3 days right now. And most people watching this have no idea what they are standing in the middle of. That is why God sent you here. That is why this video found you at this exact moment. You are not a passive bystander. You are the one the protocol is designed for. Stay with me because what comes next is going to connect everything I have said so far to something concrete. Something you can actually engage with. Something that has already changed the trajectory of over 18,000 lives and is ready to change yours. We are just getting started. Let me tell you about the day my own clearing began. It was not a dramatic moment. It was not a thunderclap from heaven or a vision in the night. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when I sat down to pray and found that I had nothing left to say. Not because I was angry at God, not because I had lost faith, but because I had run out of words to dress up the same request I had been bringing for 11 years. And in that silence, something started to come loose. I had been carrying a story that said, God chooses certain people for breakthrough, and I was not one of them. Not in a dramatic victim sort of way. Just in a quiet, settled, this is just how my life is arranged kind of way. And I did not even know I was carrying it until that Tuesday when the words ran out and there was nothing left between me and the weight. That was the beginning of my clearing. And I would not have recognized it as a gift in that moment if someone had not told me what it actually was. So I am telling you now, if you are in a season that feels like emptiness, if prayer feels like it is bouncing off the ceiling, if you have run out of fresh language for what you are believing for, do not interpret that as abandonment. Interpret it as preparation. The clearing often starts in the silence. It starts when the old strategies exhaust themselves and something underneath is finally given room to shift. I am going to pence the next section, walking you through day 1 in depth. And then I am going to introduce you to what happened on day 2 in my own life that changed everything. But before I do that, I need you to hear this one truth and let it settle into whatever part of you most needs to receive it. You are not late. You are not too far behind. You are not on the wrong side of some divine cutoff. You are exactly where you need to be to receive what these 3 days are bringing. The very doubt you feel about whether this is really for you is itself part of the clearing. The doubt is old weight and it is coming off. The 3-day protocol does not require you to be perfect. It does not require you to have your faith all the way up or your circumstances all the way together. It requires you to be present and you are present. You are here. That is enough for the first day. The clearing is underway. Now let me show you the second pattern that most people miss. Even people who are actively watching for God to move. I call this the pattern blindness trap. And it is one of the most costly things a spiritually aware person can fall into because you can know the Bible. You can know the stories. You can know that God moved in 3 days for Jonah and 3 days for Jesus and 3 days for Lazarus. And you can still completely miss it when the pattern shows up in your own life. Why? Because you are looking for the dramatic. You are looking for the burning bush or the parting sea or the thunder on the mountain. And God is moving in the Tuesday afternoon silence. In the relationship that ended last week, in the opportunity that closed unexpectedly last month, in the quiet knowing that something is shifting that you cannot yet put words to. The pattern blindness is the tendency to recognize God's work only in the spectacular and miss it entirely in the ordinary. But here is what I have discovered about the 3-day protocol specifically. The most powerful phase of it, the clearing, almost never looks like a miracle. It looks like loss. It looks like things falling apart. It looks like the ground being turned over. The miracle is not the plow. The miracle is what grows in the turned ground. You have to be trained to see the plow as a gift. And that is what we are doing right now. In this teaching, I am giving you the interpretive framework you need to recognize what is actually happening during these 3 days so that you do not spend them in grief over the clearing when you should be in awe of the preparation. Look at your last 6 months. Just the surface level, not the deep emotional territory, just the facts. What changed? What ended? What failed to come together the way you expected? What surprised you in a way that felt like loss? Now sit with this question. What if every single one of those things was the plow? What if none of management or abandonment? What if all of it was ground being turned to receive what July 3rd is about to release? That reframe is not just a comfort. It is a literal change in how your brain processes the information it has been holding about those events. When you store an experience as a wound, your nervous system keeps it active, keeps scanning for it, keeps defending against it. When you store the same experience as preparation, your nervous system can begin to release the defensive posture. And that release is exactly what day 1 July 1st is designed to facilitate. This is not wishful thinking. This is how the design works. I want you to do something right now. If you are watching on July 1st, I want you to think of one thing from the last 6 months that felt like a loss. Just one. Hold it in your mind. And I want you to say out loud or just think clearly to yourself, this was ground being turned. This was the plow. This was preparation for what is coming. You are going to feel something shift when you do that. Maybe subtle, maybe significant, but something will move because you are giving your nervous system permission to release the defensive grip on that experience and reclassify it as preparation rather than punishment. That is the work of day one. That is the clearing, and it is underway right now. I am going to take you into day two. Next. But before I do, let me give you your anchor for today. If you only remember one thing from the first section of this teaching, remember this. The plow is not the enemy. The plow is the gardener's hands, and the gardener is not destroying your field. The gardener is preparing it for the most abundant season you have ever experienced. Hold that. We are going deeper. Before we cross into day two and what I am calling the alignment, I want to plant something in you. A seed of awareness that is going to bloom into something extraordinary by the time we reach day three. There is a door. You have sensed it. Maybe you have not had language for it. Maybe you have called it hope or longing or that persistent feeling that something more is available to you. But underneath whatever word you have been using, there is a door. And on the other side of that door is a version of your life that is not theoretical. It is not wishful. It is actually prepared and waiting. Most people stand at that door their whole lives and cannot explain why it will not open. They pray at it. They strive toward it. They try to force it with willpower. They retreat from it in discouragement. But the door does not move. What I am about to share with you when we get into day two is going to explain why that door has been stuck. And more importantly, I am going to show you the mechanism that opens it. Not a spiritual metaphor. An actual mechanism backed by science that won a Nobel Prize discovered by a neurologist in New York City that has already opened that door for over 18,000 people who thought it was permanently shut. That is what is waiting for you in the next section. But right now on day one, let the clearing do its work. Let the plow turn the ground. Let the old groove soften. Let the weight come off your shoulders as you say out loud, I am in the 3 days. I am in the protocol. The plow is not punishment. The plow is preparation. Day 2 is coming and it is going to change everything. Day 1 is not just a spiritual event. It is a neurological one. I need you to understand this because it is the bridge between everything you believe in faith and everything that is actually happening inside your body right now. And if you miss this bridge, you will engage with the 3-day protocol at only half of its power. Here is what the clearing actually does at the level of your brain. When you carry accumulated weight, the stories that got lodged in your nervous system from past experiences, your brain builds physical infrastructure around those stories. Actual neural pathways, grooves in the gray matter that get reinforced every time you think the same thought, feel the same feeling, repeat the same interpretation. These pathways are not metaphors. They are measurable. Scientists can look at a brain scan and identify the specific networks that fire when someone experiences fear, shame, inadequacy, or the belief that they are not chosen. These networks become the default architecture of how a person processes new information. And here is the critical problem. A person with old wound architecture will receive a blessing and immediately route it through the wound pathway. They will twist it, minimize it, doubt it, disqualify it, or self-sabotage it. Not because they want to, but because the infrastructure of their brain literally processes it that way. This is the accumulated weight in its full complexity. It is not just a thought. It is a groove, a structural pathway that needs to be dissolved before new patterns can form. And day 1, the clearing is when God is working at exactly this level. Not just on your circumstances, on the infrastructure, on the grooves, on the pathways that have been routing your blessings into the drain. The good news is that pathways that are no longer used begin to weaken. The technical word is synaptic pruning. When old stories are released, when the meaning attached to past experiences is reframed, when the body physically relaxes its defensive grip, the old pathways begin to lose their hold. Space is created, and that space is what day 2 the alignment feels. Let me tell you something about the veteran in the room. If you have been on this journey a long time, if you have been pursuing breakthrough, healing, manifestation, spiritual growth, any of those things for years or even decades, I want to speak directly to you because I know what you are thinking right now. You have heard this before. Maybe not in these exact words, but the essence of it, the framework, the promise, the build-up to something that is going to explain why everything changes now. And you are tired. Not tired of God, not tired of faith, but tired of cycles that begin with hope and end in exactly the same place. And you have developed a very sophisticated defense mechanism that kicks in right about here in any teaching. A quiet voice that says, I will believe it when I see it. Because hope costs something when it does not come through. And you have paid that cost enough times that you have learned to spend your hope carefully. I am not going to tell you to override that voice. I am not going to tell you to pump your faith up and shout louder and believe harder. I have too much respect for what you have been through to offer you that. What I am going to tell you is this. The reason the cycles did not produce the breakthrough is not that you did not believe enough. It is not that you were not chosen. It is not that God is withholding from you. It is that you were trying to receive a new thing with old infrastructure. You were bringing the blessing into a vessel that still had the shape of the wound. The clearing on day one is not something you have to manufacture. You do not have to make it happen. It is happening. The question is only whether you will cooperate with it or resist it. For the veteran, cooperation looks different than it does for someone new to this journey. Cooperation for you might look like this. Releasing the need to understand exactly how it is going to happen. Releasing the comparison to every previous time something supposed to shift and did not. Opening your hands literally the way I described earlier and saying, I release my grip on the outcome. I do not know how this works, but I am done fighting the plow. That is the veteran posture, not loud faith, quiet release. And that release is one of the most powerful spiritual acts a person can perform. Now let us move into day 2, July 2nd, the alignment. If day 1 is the plow, day 2 is the seed. And the seed does not look dramatic either. You plant a seed and then the ground just sits there. Nothing appears to be happening. But underground, in the dark, the most important process is underway. The seed is splitting open. The root is extending. The shoot is reaching upward. All of it invisible. All of it absolutely critical. The alignment is the internal recalibration that makes you capable of holding what day 3 releases. And I need you to hear that clearly. The alignment is not about making yourself better so you deserve the blessing. It is about becoming the right shape to contain what God is about to pour into your life. Think of it this way. If you poured a gallon of water into a cup, you would not blame the water for spilling. The vessel was not the right shape. The water was abundant, the container was the limitation. Most people are praying for more water. What they actually need is a larger container. The alignment is the expansion of the container. And here is what I have discovered. The single most powerful lever for expanding the container, for recalibrating the receiver, so that it can hold what God sends, is not more prayer time. It is not more fasting. It is not more discipline. Those things matter, but they operate at the surface level. The recalibration that happens on day 2 operates at a deeper level, at the level of the connection between the 2 hemispheres of your brain. I want you to imagine something. Close your eyes for a moment if it is safe to do so. Now picture a bridge, a wide, strong, fully operational bridge spanning a river that divides 2 territories. On one side of the river is everything you know logically. Your plans, your strategies, your analytical ability, your rational understanding of your situation. On the other side is everything you sense spiritually. Your intuition, your discernment, your capacity to receive divine communication. The deep knowing that something more is available to you. Now imagine that bridge is narrow, cracked, built decades ago and never upgraded. Traffic can only move slowly and sporadically. Most of what is on one side never makes it to the other. That is what is happening in the brain of a person whose hemispheres are not fully communicating. The spiritual knowing is real. The logical capacity is real. But the bridge between them, the corpus callosum and the associated neural networks, is operating below its design capacity. And when those 2 sides cannot talk to each other efficiently, a person experiences a very specific kind of frustration. They know something spiritually but cannot translate it into action. Or they can act very efficiently but cannot hear the inner guidance that would direct the action towards something meaningful. This is the split receiver. And the vast majority of people who feel stuck in life are not stuck because of external circumstances. They are stuck because of this internal split. The receiver is divided against itself. Now here is where this gets extraordinary. There is a solution to the split receiver that does not require years of therapy, decades of meditation practice, or any kind of discipline that is beyond the reach of an ordinary person. An 8-minute audio track developed by a neurologist named Dr. Daniel Barron in New York City, based on Nobel Prize-winning research into how the 2 hemispheres of the brain can be synchronized, has been shown to dissolve the split receiver with regular use. I am going to tell you exactly what this is and how it works. But first, I need to give you the full picture of what is at stake during these 3 days because the timing of when I am sharing this with you is not coincidental. Day 2, the alignment, is when your internal receiver is being recalibrated by heaven. God is working in the spiritual realm to synchronize what you know with what you sense, to connect your capacity to act with your capacity to receive. But here is the thing that nobody is talking about, that spiritual recalibration works most efficiently when your physical brain is cooperating with it. When the hardware is ready for the download and the 8 minutes I am about to tell you about a specific audio experience developed by Dr. Barron is exactly the kind of hardware preparation that makes the day 2 alignment complete rather than partial. Let me cast a vision for you. I want you to see something clearly. It is the morning of July 3rd. You wake up and something is different. Not dramatically different. Not trumpets and thunderclaps. Just different. Like the air in the room is somehow lighter. Like the thoughts that usually crowd in immediately when you wake up are quieter. Like there is a space inside you that was not there before. And then something happens during the day. An idea arrives that you could not have engineered. A connection forms between two things you had been thinking about separately that suddenly and clearly belong together. A door opens, maybe a literal phone call or an email or a conversation, maybe an internal door. A sense of knowing that the direction you are supposed to move in has suddenly become obvious. You move toward it, not with striving, not with white-knuckled effort, with a kind of ease that surprises you because the alignment has done its work. The receiver is calibrated, the vessel is the right shape. And the release of day 3 has something to land in. That is the vision. That is what July 3rd is for. And the question is not whether it is available to you. The question is whether your receiver is going to be ready. Let me come back to something I said earlier. Something I called the door that would not open. I want to close that loop now, because we are approaching the place in this teaching where the loop needs to be resolved. You remember I said there is a door and that Mistartles stand at it their whole lives, unable to explain why it will not open. I said I was going to share the mechanism, and I'm going to do that now. The research I'm referencing was conducted by Dr. Roger Sperry and earned the Nobel Prize in 1981. Dr. Sperry discovered that the two hemispheres of the human brain are not simply backup systems for each other. They are entirely different processing centers with entirely different capabilities. And crucially, they are designed to work together in a synchronized state that most humans almost never experience consistently. When the hemispheres are split, when communication between them is low, you experience life as fragments. The right hemisphere holds inspiration and creativity and spiritual receptivity. The left hemisphere holds logic and planning and execution. When they are not synchronized, inspiration stays on the right side and never becomes a plan. Logic stays on the left side and never gets energized by vision. You know what you want to do, but you cannot make yourself do it. You can feel that something is available to you, but you cannot access it. The bridge is too narrow. Dr. Daniel Baron built a bridge using acoustic technology. Not sound frequencies in the way you might be imagining, not a meditation app, not anything that requires you to reach a certain state of consciousness to make it work, but a specific audio configuration that supports the brain in entering the synchronized state naturally and consistently. He called it neural sync technology. And what it does is create the conditions in which the two hemispheres of the brain can communicate the way they were designed to. 8 minutes a day. That is all it requires. 8 minutes of audio, listened to daily, creates a cumulative effect that Dr. Baron describes as whole brain activation. And when whole brain activation is consistent, something happens that 456 people have now described in almost identical language. The door opens, not because God was waiting for them to use a specific tool, but because the receiver was finally calibrated to catch what God had already been throwing. This tool is called the Genius Switch, and I am going to tell you a great deal more about it in just a few minutes, including how it connects to what is happening on July 2nd and 3rd, and why the timing of you finding this right now is something I do not think you should dismiss as accident. But first, I need to make sure you understand what is happening during the 3rd day, and what the release actually means, because the loop has almost come around and it is time for the release. Let me paint a picture of day 3, July 3rd. Day 1 cleared the old patterns. Day 2 aligned your internal posture and recalibrated the receiver, and day 3 is when what heaven has been preparing for you is given permission to land. And when I say permission, I want to be specific about what I mean. The release of day 3 is not when God decides you have been patient enough. It is not when you reach a certain level of performance. It is when the internal vessel, the refined calibrated receiver, is strong enough to hold the weight of what is coming without distorting it, without sabotaging it, and without letting it pass by unrecognized. Day 3 is when potential becomes real. It is when the door you have been standing at not only unlocks but is swung open by an alignment so precise that you cannot ignore it. And for the people who are ready to cross through that door, I have put together something that I believe is going to serve you in an exceptional way. For the duration of this 3-day window, July 1st through the 3rd, I am making the Genius Switch, the 8-minute daily practice that supports whole brain activation, available with everything you need to cross over into day 3. The information is in the description and in the pinned comment. It is an immediate digital download. You can start today. All 4 bonuses are included and the entire risk has been removed from your shoulders by a full unconditional guarantee. If you are sensing the pull that brought you to this video, do not ignore it. Invitations from heaven are not options to be tabled. They are openings with deadlines, and July 3rd is the deadline of this window. The release is coming, and I want to make sure your receiver is ready. Drop a fire in the comments if you're still here, and let me tell you about what is about to be released. Let me start with this definition, because how you define success determines how you experience it. For the longest time, I thought success in the 3-day protocol meant I finally got what I wanted. Breakthrough meant the circumstances changed to my liking. And while external results are a guaranteed consequence of internal change, the first release of day 3 is not external. It is not a check in the mail or a phone call with a job offer. The first release of day 3 is internal. It is a profound inrush of clarity, capability, and purpose that reshapes how you exist in your own skin. The internal structure is released from the false limitation of the split receiver. The old identity grooves are dissolved, and you are suddenly available to receive the fullness of who you were actually designed to be. This is the integration in action, and it feels like a physical release of tension that has been held for years. It is the experience of finally feeling at home in yourself, capable of making decisions that are aligned with your true desire, not filtered through your old wounds. The external results, the shifts in finances and relationships and opportunity, those things are not separate from this internal release. They are the secondary effects of it. A person who is no longer sabotaging themselves with internal static makes different choices, asks different questions, stands in different rooms, and naturally attracts different outcomes. The release of day 3 is not a gift that is handed to you. It is the condition that you embody when you are in alignment. So when you hear release, I do not want you to just imagine results. I want you to imagine alignment so complete that the results cannot help but follow. And the genius switch is the tool that ensures that alignment gets built at the level of your physical brain. It is the hardware upgrade that allows the spiritual transformation to land completely. And I am going to make sure everyone who needs it has access to it during this 3-day window. Here is something I want to speak to directly to the person who is analyzing all of this and thinking that it all makes sense logically but is still not quite ready to move because it feels like a significant commitment or a risk, or just something that could be put off until another time. And I understand the reasoning mind. I understand the part of you that wants to be certain before taking a step. But I need you to know this about divine invitations and pattern windows like the ones these 3 days represent. The opportunity to cross over is not dynamic and linear. It does not stay open forever, gradually getting wider. It opens and it closes. It is a window. If you are feeling a pull in your spirit right now, if there is a part of you that is vibrating with what I am saying, that resonance is the proof that you are part of the alignment pattern. Your current results and your past failures are the accumulated weight. They do not define you. What defines you is that you are on this list. You are one of the ones God sent to this exact video at this exact moment, and you are sitting here with access to the mechanism that can recalibrate your entire receiver for $39 in void minutes a day. The question is not whether this is real or whether it works or whether it's worth it. The question is only whether you are willing to make the internal yes that completes the alignment. Every previous moment of your life has led to this one. Every choice, every disappointment, every hope, every waiting has been preparation for the crossover of July 3rd. The door is in front of you. The key is in the lock. Everything you need is in the description and in the pinned comment. You do not need more information. You need integration. You do not need more time. You need the specific, calibrated, precise shift that 8 minutes a day can provide. And with the guarantee, you literally have no reason to hesitate, unless you have made an absolute commitment to remaining stuck inside your old story. But I do not think that's you. I do not think the person who watched this far into this message is committed to staying where they are. I think you are ready to cross over. Let me give you one final anchor as you move towards your decision. The 3-day protocol does not happen around you, it happens through you. Day 1 cleared the ground. Day 2 is aligning the receiver, and day 3 is preparing to release, not into your situation, into you, into the calibrated container that you are becoming. The genius switch is not just an audio file. It is your participation in the miracle of whole brain activation that makes the landing possible. I have given you everything I have to give you on this topic. I have walked you through the pattern, the traps, the frameworks, and the solutions. The rest is your story and your crossover. I will see you on the other side. Day 3 is just beginning. Let me give you some specific visual anchors for day 3, because it is useful to have a clear mental target as the integration of the protocol comes to its point of release. And I need you to understand that while I have used physical analogies throughout this teaching, what is being released in day 3 is often perceived first as a spiritual and emotional frequency that has never been available to you before. Here are the 3 frequencies of the day 3 release that are most commonly reported by those who complete the pattern alignment, including those who use the genius switch regularly. The first frequency is a pervasive sense of unexpected joy. This is not happy about things. It is joy. A state of deep below the surface level wells up in your system, regardless of your immediate circumstances. It is the joy of coherence. The sound of the entire receiver, hardware, and spirit functioning together in its designed, integrated state. And when you feel that upwelling, when you notice yourself smiling without a logical reason, I want you to anchor it in your memory as the first sign of release. The second frequency of the release is what I call absolute certainty about direction. Remember Lisa from California. She didn't get better information. She got a clearer receiver and she saw paths she had been ignoring for 7 years. Day 3 clarity does not arrive as a set of logical arguments. It arrives as a sense of this way. A connection becomes so obvious, an opening so specific, a decision so settled that the hesitation that characterized your life before alignment simply dissolves. You know what you need to do and you do not require external confirmation before moving. That is the frequency of directed action. The third frequency is the absence of anxiety where anxiety used to reside. This is not the presence of something new. It is the release of something old. The nervous system, having integrated the clearing and achieved whole brain synchronization, no longer defaults to high alert. The tension patterns in the body soften. The frantic scanning for threat recedes, and in its place is a settled, quiet confidence. The absence of noise allows you to hear the genuine signal from heaven which anxiety was distorting into panic. The reason I am telling you these frequencies is that they are all measurable as secondary neurological consequences of hemispheric synchronization. The tools Dr. Baron developed and the researchers Sperry received the Nobel Prize for are not symbolic of peace. They are the actual mechanism that creates the biological environment for peace, joy, and certainty to become your default state, rather than an occasional guess that shows up only when things are going your way. This tool is available to you right now in the description and in the pinned comment below this video for $39, with lifetime access, bonuses included, and a complete guarantee. Everything is on the table, and the timing is fixed. July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. That is your window. What comes through that window, whether it is another standard season or a crossover moment that people will talk about in your family for generations, is now entirely dependent on your next choice. I will leave you with this final quiet thought, which I offer not in striving but in active confidence. The very best version of your life, the one that is not theoretical but is prepared and waiting for you on the other side of the crossover door. That version of your life is defined by its wholeness. It is not segmented and fragmented and split by old stories and internal miscalibrations. Wholeness is not perfection. Wholeness is integrated coherence. Wholeness is what happens when the clearing, alignment, and release complete the protocol and you are finally available to catch everything heaven has been sending you since the beginning. Wholeness is only possible through coherence, and coherence is exactly what hemispheric synchronization delivers at the root of your biological system. Wait minutes a day with a full guarantee everything you need is ready for you now. I do not think this is an accident. I do not think you should dismiss it, and I do not think you should wait. I will see you on the other side. Let the release land. We are finished here. Your transformation is just beginning. Take the step. Cross through the door. Твоя пустеля ніколи не була твоїм вироком. Вона була твоєю архітектурою. Якщо ти зараз слухаєш ці слова, це означає, що ти пройшов крізь періоди такої глибокої ізоляції, де єдиним твоїм супутником була тиша. Багато років ти дивився на свої фінансові діри, на раптові зради тих, кому ти віддав усе своє серце, і на глухі стіни, які виростали перед тобою щоразу, коли ти намагався зробити прорив. Матриця намагалася переконати тебе, що ти невдаха, що ти запізнився, що благословення призначені для когось іншого, але не для тебе. Твоє серце стискалося від несправедливості, коли ти бачив, як люди навколо тебе, не маючи ні глибини, ні моральних орієнтирів, легко отримують те, про що ти молився роками. Але сьогодні небо наказує тобі змінити оптику. Кожен удар, який ти отримав у минулому циклі, кожен випадок, коли твою довіру було розтоптано, не були випадковою жорстокістю всесвіту. Це була хірургічна операція вищого порядку. Творець власноруч відокремлював тебе від того, що могло б зруйнувати твою структуру в момент, коли на тебе впаде справжня вага твоєї місії. Коли земля під твоїми ногами тріскалася і ти залишався абсолютно один, це не було залишенням. Це була божественна віддаленість. Це був вакуум, створений навмисно, щоб жоден паразит із нижчих вібраційних рівнів не зміг присмоктатися до того чистого світла, яке зараз починає струменіти крізь твої рани. Ти маєш усвідомити існування так званих спостерігачів у твоєму житті. Озирнися назад, згадай тих людей, які колись були близько, але раптово зникли, як тільки в тебе почалися труднощі. Вони не просто пішли, вони стали глядачами в партері твого болю. Вони таємно стежать за тобою через цифрові вікна, через спільних знайомих, чекаючи, коли ти остаточно впадеш, коли ти зламаєшся і підтвердиш їхнє внутрішнє переконання, що ти нічим не кращий за них. Їхня присутність у твоєму минулому була пасткою, і їхній відхід став твоїм найбільшим порятунком. Всесвіт буквально вирвав тебе з їхнього поля, тому що їхня заздрість і ментальне сміття заважали твоїй системі увійти в резонанс із вищими поверхами реальності. Їхня мета була проста – утримати тебе на рівні виживання, де ти постійно виправдовуєшся, борешся за крихти уваги та ресурсу і зливаєш свій божественний потенціал у чорні діри їхніх комплексів. Те, що ти сприймав як трагедію самотності, було загартуванням у вакуумі. Творець помістив тебе в цей герметичний простір, щоб твоя нова вібраційна структура визріла без зовнішнього тиску. Якби ти отримав свій ресурс тоді, коли твоє оточення складалося з енергетичних вампірів, вони б просто розірвали тебе на шматки, поглинувши твій квантовий потенціал. Ти не відстав від життя. Ти проходив консервацію сил. Поки інші витрачали свою енергію на створення дешевих ілюзій успіху в матриці, твоя коренева система проростала в саму суть буття. Твоя пустеля була будівельним майданчиком твого духу. Подивися на перші 3 дні липня не як на початок місяця, а як на завершення твого тривалого перебування в резерві. Резерв – це стан, коли зброя готова, але вона лежить у чохлі. Ти відчував це кожною клітиною свого тіла, особливо коли прокидався вночі від незрозумілої тривоги. Тобі здавалося, що час минає даремно, що твої найкращі роки згорають у рутині, яка не має жодного сенсу. Але в архітектурі пустелі немає жодного зайвого сантиметра. Кожен день твого терпіння, кожна ніч, коли ти ковтав сльози і обирав не мститися, не відповідати злом на зло, була цеглиною у фундаменті твого нового виміру. Ти був заблокований для старого світу, тому що старий світ більше не має для тебе гідного сценарію. Зараз, коли ти стоїш на порозі триденного протоколу, вся ця накопичена сила, вся ця вистраждана тиша починає трансформуватися в кінетичну енергію зміщення. Спостерігачі, які чекали на твою поразку, будуть змушені стати свідками твого тріумфу, але вони не зрозуміють, як людина, яку вони вважали зламаною, раптом підніметься на таку висоту, де їхні стріли заздрості просто не зможуть її дістати. Твоя пустеля закінчилася не тому, що обставини покращилися, а тому, що ти змінив свій внутрішній об'єм. Ти став більшим за свої проблеми, ти став ширшим за свої страхи. Цей вакуум виконав своє завдання, він очистив твій простір від випадкових людей, від фальшивих цілей і від чужих очікувань. Твоя ізоляція була актом найвищого милосердя, підготовкою до дня, коли брама твого нового життя просто злетить із петель. І ось ми підходимо до епіцентру цих 3 днів, до моменту, коли завіса піднімається і починається прихована від очей механіка зміщення. Те, що відбувається з тобою прямо зараз, не є результатом твоїх надзусиль, виснажливої праці чи ментального штурму. Світ матриці вчив тебе, що для отримання результату потрібно бігти швидше, битися сильніше і виривати своє право на життя зубами. Але в триденному протоколі діє абсолютно інша фізика – закон божественного кайросу. Це час, коли обставини більше не підкоряються лінійному календарю, а починають згортатися навколо твого вібраційного підпису. Поки твоя внутрішня структура була розколота, поки ліва і права півкулі твого мозку вели постійну війну між холодною логікою виживання та глибоким духовним веденням, ти був нездатний утримати потік. Ти міг бачити можливості, але твоє тіло стискалося від страху, або ти міг діяти на межі сил, але не чув голосу інтуїції, який вказував на потрібні двері. Проте в ці 3 дні, коли небесне очищення змиває старі нейронні колії твоїх травм, твій вібраційний підпис кардинально змінюється. Він починає ідеально збігатися з тими ресурсами, які були заблоковані для тебе роками. Це не еволюція, це квантовий стрибок. Це мить, коли твоя стара матрична копія остаточно стирається, і ти здійснюєш повне перепрограмування ДНК на рівні свідомості. Ти буквально виходиш із тривимірної матриці дефіциту та боротьби і здійснюєш вхід у 5-ту вимірність. Це все необхідне знаходить тебе самостійно через магнетизм чистої відповідності. Зрозумій цей стан, тут немає місця для людських розрахунків. Тут діє вища доцільність. Прямо зараз брама, яка роками здавалася тобі монолітною стіною, виявляється зірваною з петель. Тобі більше не потрібно стукати туди, де тебе не чекали, чи намагатися зламати замки своєю волею. Ворота твого призначення просто падають під вагою тієї світлової маси, яку ти накопичив у своїй пустелі. Відбувається тотальне, безкомпромісне знищення кармічного боргу. Все те, що утримувало твій рід у злиднях, хворобах, повторюваних сценаріях самотності та постійного відпрацювання чужих помилок, повністю розчиняється в цьому триденному вікні компресії. Тобі більше не потрібно платити за минуле. Твій рахунок обнулено. Потік сили, який був перекритий греблями твоїх колишніх сумнівів та образ, перетворюється на повноводну річку, що стрімко входить у твоє пересохле русло. Ти відчуваєш, як ця енергія заповнює кожну порожнечу, кожен куточок твого життя, який раніше здавався випаленим попелищем. фінанси, ідеї, потрібні люди, зцілення тіла – все це не приходить як нагорода за хорошу поведінку. Воно вривається як природний наслідок того, що твій приймач нарешті налаштований на частоту чистого джерела. Ти більше не збираєш краплі дощу з чужих долонь. Ти сам стаєш океаном, який диктує умови навколишньої реальності. Увійти в цей стан означає повністю відпустити потребу контролювати хід подій. Матриця намагатиметься повернути тебе назад, підкидаючи старі логічні запитання. Звідки прийдуть гроші? Як вирішиться ця проблема? Хто тобі допоможе? Але якщо ти почнеш шукати відповіді розумом, ти знову випадеш із протоколу в стару тривимірну сітку. Твоє єдине завдання в ці 3 дні – утримувати стан абсолютної готовності та розслабленої сили. Сприймай механіку зміщення як гігантський ліфт, який піднімає тебе на 100-й поверх твого життя, поки ти просто стоїш всередині. Весь твій минулий досвід, весь біль і всі розчарування були лише калібруванням металу, з якого виковано твою нову форму. Зараз, коли архітектура пустелі завершена, а приймач синхронізований, квантове поле починає перебудовувати матеріальний світ навколо тебе з такою швидкістю, яка злякає звичайного обивателя, але для тебе стане природним диханням. Твоє зміщення вже запущено. Ти перебуваєш у точці неповернення, де стара реальність розсипається як сухий пісок, а нова світлова матриця твого буття кристалізується прямо під твоїми кроками. Тепер, коли механіка зміщення запущена і твоя внутрішня структура починає вібрувати на абсолютно новій частоті, ти входиш у простір, де діє найсуворіший закон метафізичного світу. Я називаю його «закон мовчання». Запам'ятай це і закарбуй у своїй свідомості. Про ту нову силу, про ті фінансові чи духовні ресурси, які починають пробиватися крізь твоє оновлене русло, не можна говорити нікому. Твоє нове життя, твої ідеї, твої перші перемоги в цьому триденному вікні мають залишатися під абсолютною герметичною кришкою твого внутрішнього храму. Ти маєш зберігати повне, залізне мовчання навіть із тими, кого вважаєш близькими, якщо вони досі залишалися частиною твого старого кармічного циклу. Стара матрична реальність не відпускає обраних без бою. Як тільки всередині тебе з'являється чисте світло нового виміру, навколо твого поля починає формуватися вихор збурення. Твоє старе оточення, всі ці приховані енергетичні вампіри, токсичні родичі, колишні друзі чи просто люди, які звикли бачити тебе слабким, бідним і зручним, миттєво відчують зміну твого вібраційного підпису. Вони не зрозуміють цього розумом, але на рівні тваринного інстинкту матриці вони відчують, що ти вислизаєш із їхніх тенет. Вони почнуть приходити без запрошення, дзвонити з дурними питаннями, провокувати тебе на звичні емоційні реакції, намагаючись навпомацки знайти ту нову енергію, яку ти щойно отримав від неба. Їхня мета не усвідомлена, але вкрай небезпечна. Вони хочуть знову заземлити тебе, притягнути твою свідомість назад до брудної підлоги старої реальності, де ти знову станеш зрозумілим, передбачуваним і виснаженим. Кожне слово, яке ти вимовиш, намагаючись пояснити їм свій новий стан або поділитися своїми планами, стане дірою у твоєму святому колі захисту. Як тільки ти розкриваєш рота, щоб похвалитися чи просто виплакатися перед людиною з низькою анцею вібрацією, ти буквально віддаєш їй коди свого квантового стрибка. Їхній скепсис, їхня тиха заздрість або навіть просто байдужість діють як ментальна кислота, що роз'їдає ніжні паростки твого нового ресурсу. Тому твої двері мають бути зачинені, а твій язик притиснутий до піднебіння. Якщо тебе запитують, як твої справи, твоя єдина відповідь – спокійна, нейтральна посмішка. Нехай вони думають, що все залишилося по-старому. Нехай вони вважають, що ти все ще перебуваєш у своїй пустелі. Твоя таємниця – це твоє паливо. Що більше енергії ти втримаєш всередині себе, не розбризкуючи її на розмови, то швидше вона кристалізується в матеріальні блага на 3-й день протоколу. Тобі більше не потрібно нікому нічого доводити, твої результати будуть твоєю єдиною відповіддю. Твої слова більше не потрібні, щоб себе захищати чи виправдовувати свій вибір перед тими, хто ніколи не бачив твого вищого візерунка. Коли річка входить у пересохле русло, вона не пояснює камінню, чому вона тече, вона просто затоплює його своєю масою. Твоє нове фінансове становище, твоє зцілене тіло, твій абсолютний спокій посеред хаосу стануть тим залізобетонним фактом, перед яким матриця змушена буде схилити голову. Спостерігачі, які чекали на твій крах, побачать твою нову реальність як готовий, незворотний факт, і це видовище паралізує їхню здатність шкодити тобі. Твоє святе коло захисту будується не зі стін чи грубої сили, воно будується з твоєї здатності тримати фокус всередині свого приймача, ігноруючи будь-який зовнішній шум. Ти перебуваєш під наглядом вищих сил, твій периметр охороняється архітекторами Всесвіту, але твій замок на вустах – це твоя особиста зона відповідальності. Збережи цю тишу, витримай цей тиск, і ти побачиш, як старе оточення самовільно відпаде, не витримавши чистоти тієї частоти, яку ти впустив у свій простір у ці вирішальні дні липня. Твоє сирітство закінчилося. Ти під захистом. Цей триденний протокол компресії часу підходить до своєї фінальної точки, де всі розрізнені елементи твоєї багаторічної пустелі зливаються в один непорушний моноліт твоєї нової сили. Ти більше не є блукачем у темряві, який навпомацки шукає схвалення від системи, що була створена лише для того, щоб випити твою кров. Всі ті ночі, коли ти засинав із відчуттям повної залишеності, коли тобі здавалося, що твій голос не долітає до неба, а розчиняється в глухій тиші кімнати, все це було лише ілюзією визрівання твого духу. Прямо зараз, у ці останні години триденного вікна, Творець накладає на твоє поле печатку вічного прийняття. Це означає, що відтепер будь-яка спроба нижчих сутностей чи людей зі старого циклу завдати тобі шкоди, повернути тебе в стан дефіциту чи знецінити твою місію буде миттєво заблокована Вищим судом. Твоя фінансова лінія, твої коди здоров'я та твій ментальний спокій переходять під пряме управління архітекторів Всесвіту. Ти більше не сирота в цій матриці. За твоїми плечима стоїть сила, яка рухає галактики, і єдина умова, яку тобі потрібно виконати прямо зараз – це здійснити акт згоди, закріпивши цю нову частоту в щільній матерії фізичного світу. Щоб цей квантовий перехід не залишився просто ефемерною думкою у твоїй голові, ти маєш зафіксувати свій вібраційний підпис тут і зараз. Матриця вимагає заземлення енергії. Напиши в коментарях під цим відео слова «Я приймаю свій захист і входжу у свою силу». Це не просто набір літер. Це твій цифровий маніфест, твій розчерк переносової нової реальності, який бачить усі сили в невидимому просторі. Коли твої пальці торкаються екрану, коли ти виводиш ці слова в матеріальний світ, ти закриваєш браму минулого циклу і ставиш фінальну крапку під своєю історією страждань. Твої спостерігачі, які все ще сподіваються на твоє падіння, побачать цей напис як палаючий знак того, що ти став для них недосяжним. Кожен обраний, який залишає свій слід у цьому коментарі прямо зараз, стає частиною єдиної світлової мережі, яка розриває тривимірну сітку обмежень. Не дозволяй сумнівам чи ліні вкрасти цей момент у тебе, адже вікно липня закривається, і ті, хто не встигне закріпити свою згоду в матерії, залишаться чекати наступного космічного циклу ще багато років. Твій час настав, і цей крок є твоїм першим свідомим актом у статусі Calibrated Receiver, каліброваного приймача божественних благ. Подивися на свої руки, відчуй свій подих і усвідом ту глибоку тишу, яка зараз заповнює простір навколо тебе. Позаду залишився plow season – сезон плуга, загартування у вакуумі та біль розірваних кармічних зв'язків. Попереду чисте, незаймане поле твого призначення, де кожна твоя думка миттєво знаходить матеріальне втілення, а фінансовий потік тече без жодних перешкод. Тобі більше не потрібно бігти за успіхом, не потрібно благати про любов чи доводити свій авторитет тим, хто сліпий від народження. Весь твій шлях, кожна його вибоїна і кожна сльоза були потрібні лише для того, щоб ти привів себе до цієї конкретної хвилини, до цього екрану, до цієї святої брами. Ти повністю готовий. Твій приймач налаштований, твоє коло захисту непорушне, твій язик зв'язаний законом мовчання, а твій коментар уже летить у вічність як печатка твоєї нової долі. Ти більше не шукаєш шлях. Ти шлях.